Okay guys, on this episode of Snappy's Garage, I'm going to take this mag wheel and turn it into something that looks a little more like this.
For the video, I'm going to take you by step that I use to go from start to finish on sanding out the casting marks and polishing the wheel. This is my first step. I'm taking down all the corners and taking down all these hard to reach areas that you can't really hand sand or get with other tools. So I'm using the Pferd polycaps on my Dremel and just taking down very lightly. You don't want to go too deep where you have scores in your wheel that you now have to sand out by hand. And this is a very effective way because these hard to reach areas by hand will take forever and are almost impossible to make look polished. For the view's sake, I actually speed up this part of the video where I switched to a bigger polycap, which I found was more effective for me. But I don't do all 9 spokes for the video. I'm doing one section, repeating it throughout all spokes, but only showing you the one per step. Now I'm taping off each section, so now you don't have to see where I start and finish. At the end of the video, I will take the tape off and show you throughout the steps the differences. So now for the second step, I'm going to take a sanding disc I got off Amazon. This is a decent kit. I got 2 different ones. They both were all right. The sandpaper doesn't like holding the Velcro for too long if you hit it too high speed or tap a corner too quick. But it's a very cost-effective kit and works very well for my aspect. Now, when you're sanding the flats, you don't want to put too much pressure because this will actually start putting wave into the polish finish if you go too much in one area. You really just want to get through the casting marks, and that is all. But the more thorough you are taking those casting marks, the easier it is later on to hand sand. Now for this step, I'm using the Pferd poly tips again. This is a little bit bigger with the bigger bore I had put on my die grinder. And this again is very well, but you don't want to stay in one place too long. You want to make a nice even pass, cleaning up all the casting marks real quickly. That this will take up a lot more material than you need if you let it sit. Now for this step, I'm taking 80 grit sandpaper, and all you're doing is going over all the areas you already hit, which was the inside lip of the spoke. And you're going to take down all the rough marks from the rotary tools and just cleaning up the whole area, getting more of the casting marks that you miss and evening out everything. Moving up from the 80 grit, I go to a 220 grit. You can also do 150 grit and move up from there. But I'm using 220. Everything that I missed with the 80 grit will show through, so you have to be very thorough with that. And you have to be very thorough with this step also, because anything you miss with the 220 will be shown in the next grit of sanding. Also, to be known, I'm also hitting the outer lip, which I avoided with the 80 to leave out the big scratches, but the 220 will start to polish it up nice. Now for this step, I'm moving on using 320 sandpaper with a little bit of WD-40 to be like a wet sand, just to lube up the sandpaper. Wet sanding will be a little bit more time consuming, but also gives a very good quality product. I think this works well for my aspect, especially because the water will get into the blue tape and start making it fall off. So after that step, I just took a gray and a white Scotch-brite. I hit it quickly with the gray and then hit it with the white after. And it gave me a very good finish. I wouldn't say I have it perfectly mirror polished finish, but it could be close as long as you take off enough in each step prior, staging up to this Scotch-brite. Now for this step, I'm using the polish and just putting a little bit of the compound on the rag. I'm blending it and pushing it throughout the whole thing. Then once it's nice and set, I'm going to switch to a clean part of a rag and actually polish it out, buff it out, take all the polish off. Now for the video, all I'm doing is a hand polish because I don't want to rip up this tape and not be able to show you where I start and stop. But the more you go to a full polished mirror finish, the more the underlying scratches or any missed casting marks will show in the finished product. So now the video, I showed you 8 steps and left one untouched with the valve. So the first step, I took down the corners, and we're going to pull the tape and seat it to the next step, which I took a flat disc and cleaned up all the flats. On the third step, I hit with another poly disc all the 90s that I couldn't reach with a flat. Now this next one is the 80 grit. Moving on to the 220. Moving on to the DW40 and the 320. Now we have the Scotch-brite finish, which is a really nice finish. And finally, you have that full polish finish paired to the original finish. Now moving across the wheel, you can see how much different it is, but there is a lot of work to do. If you want to do this to your mag wheels, beware that it will take you hours upon hours. But in the end, I think it's worth it because you get a finish like this, and it's not chrome, that's just polished aluminum. So if you want to sit down, hunker down, you can have a night and day difference with your wheels. Before I head out, I would like to add that on the other side of the wheel, you have these letters. I originally took this video the first time I want to do a polishing video. I didn't edit in the beginning, but want to show you now that you can use the same flat disc that you use to clean up the wheels. You put an 80 grit and you can grind the letters down. As soon as you stop seeing the letters, stop and move to a different grit or hand sand.
Hey guys, this is the finished product. If you like what you see, I'll be dropping a link down below in the description of all the products I use. Be sure to like and subscribe. Comment what I did right. Comment what I did wrong. Tell me how you really feel. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.